everyone, welcome to the Firefly Berries YouTube channel. My name is Tanya and I am the dyer behind our line called Berry Fun Yarns, which is naturally dyed yarn. I'm coming to you today not really with a regular Berry Fun Adventures episode about yarn, but something a little different. It is the beginning of January and I am feeling a big need to declutter some of my yarn and to reorganize, to kind of stir the stash. So I thought I'd take you along with me and let you see what I'm doing, and maybe it'll inspire you to do a little bit of your own stash stirring and see all the beautiful things that are hiding in your stash. So let me show you where we're at. So this is a little snippet of my stash right now. I'm going to back up. I do not have a ton of room in my house for my yarn, so this is actually our bedroom, and I keep some of the stash that I find most inspiring out. And then I have like an area, kind of see down below, I try to put like my projects, and I have like little snacks in there, but it's kind of gotten messy. And then this is the chair where I usually will do my knitting, but then I have this like area back here that becomes kind of a mess. So the other place I also have yarn is in this dresser. This is like a dresser with our clothes in. But then the bottom drawer here, let's see if I can pull it out. At one time, I put together some yarns that I had gotten ready for projects. So I put them in their own bags and I labeled them, all ready to go with the pattern I was going to use. So that's a great idea, but I forget about them because they're down there because I have so much. And then the other place that I still have yarn is in my closet. You can see I've got more yarn than I probably have clothing hanging in my closet. So I need to take these buckets out, and there's one over here. And I think I'm just going to take everything out and sort of see what happens. So here we go. Okay, so I'm looking and feeling a little overwhelmed at the moment. Whoop. As you guys can't even see it, but we have way more yarn than I could knit in quite a while. So I think always when you're organizing yarn and organizing a space where you want to be creative, the hardest part is to decide what brings you most joy and what you want to have in your eyesight. Because I don't know about you, but as a creative person, I find that if there are beautiful things for me to look at, then I feel more inspired and more likely to knit them and to create things. So what I'm noticing here as I'm pulling out some of my things is that these yarns that I have packaged up, while they are super conveniently stored and they're organized very neatly, they are the ones that bring me most joy, that I'm most excited about. I mean, beautiful yarns. I can hardly see them here, but colors, patterns. I have a pattern in here to knit. So I think what I need to do is figure out how to put these out for me to see. Right now, what I have on my shelves that I showed you is more of my sock yarn, which is just kind of easier because it's not in a group per se, like a project that I have already. So I think what I'm going to do is I keep all my yarn stash on Ravelry, and I'm going to look up this stash on Ravelry. I'm going to make a note on my digital file of what pattern I want to use with it and which other yarn I'm going to use it. And then I'm going to put these pretty things on my shelf so that I can see them. And maybe I'll organize them according to sweater quantity, but that's the plan. So right now, to start, I'm going to take my yarn, and although I do currently have it organized as fingering weight, worsted weight, that sort of by weight of yarn, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate it out further into for sweaters, for hats, for shawls, for projects, because sometimes I'm in the mood to knit a sweater and sometimes I'm in the mood to knit a hat. So I think it would be easier for me, more logical in how I work, to organize it by what I'm going to do with the yarn. So that's the plan. Okay, so I am officially sitting in a very messy room of yarn. Let me show you what it looks like and what I've done so far. Okay, so I have not worked on the lower shelves over here yet. I know I need to do some work on that, but I did take out the two on the top on either side because one was a sweater quantity that I thought I was going to knit soon, but it's been sitting there for a whole year, and the other was all my sock yarn. The one in the middle, I have picked out, I want to make more socks this year, so I've picked out my 10 most favorite skeins of yarn to make socks this year. So that's what that is. I want to have that, there's my hand. I want to have that front and center so that I remember when I want to make socks to pick from those first. Besides that, let's back up here and I'll show you. My two very good cats are in here. The ones that don't eat yarn, so they think the world is kind of a little crazy. So over here where Soleil is, that's my cat drinking water. We'll start over here. So on the floor here, I made a pile of shawl yarn. We've got some hat yarn. I have some DK yarn in that bucket there. I'm not quite sure. I might just leave it organized as DK because usually when I do DK, it's a specific thing. It's more the fingering weight. That would be like a hat or a shawl or a sock sort of thing, depending on the content. And then this pile has to be the most embarrassing pile of all. This is my sweater quantity pile. I counted and I have enough to make 8 different sweaters for myself. What is that? Obviously, I thought I had a deficiency in sweater quantity, so I was buying it, but I wasn't knitting it. And the thing is, I went over it and I still love all of them, and a lot of them I have patterns picked out for. So, moral of this story is I need to get knitting sweaters for myself. Over here, I have 3 buckets of like scraps or leftover sock yarn that maybe, this is all fingering weight, except for this bucket right here. This is like a northeasterly DK / worsted project I started a long time ago. So I'm going to go through these. I'm going to sort through these and see which ones I really want to keep, which ones I want to put into my scrappy projects, and which ones I want to share with friends, because everybody likes, well, at least most of my friends like to knit scrappy projects and get minis. Then over here I have a couple buckets which I think I'm going to do some serious sorting out of. The top one is my thicker worsted weight yarn, or even bulky. I don't do a lot of that, but that one big bulky Woolies gray that you see standing up, I made a rug out of that once, or I make a cat blanket out of that because it's real squishy and it's cheap and inexpensive. So I think I need to sort that and figure out some projects to do with those. And down here, I am not sure. I think this is my non-superwash bucket. And if I look closely, this one I inherited from somebody whose grandma died. I think I have a couple other skeins in here like that. This was a sweater quantity that I got for myself, but I ended up making a sweater for my son, so I didn't use it all. And then this is a little extra from some sweaters. So again, I need to go through this and see, am I really going to knit this, or should I pass that on to someone else? Then on the bed, I have organized a little bit. This bucket is my Wool of the Andes bucket, and I know I will use this, and I'll keep this separate because I like to make blankets out of this, and it's very cost effective for 100% superwash wool. Then I have, didn't realize I had so much kitchen fiber or yarn to make like kitchen scrubbies or dishcloths, so I have that section there. And this is from leftover from a class I took where they made us buy way too much yarn, but it's this Rowan discontinued fingering weight, and it's really pretty. So I really like it. I just have to figure out what I'm going to make with it. Then I have some Surrey. This little area here, I have a couple projects in mind. This is some worsted. What is this? This is in the wrong spot. I think these are minis to go somewhere, so I'll have to put that over in the mini section. This pile here, I did discover I have more mohair than I thought I did. So that's my mohair. This was sort of random skeins that I had set aside, but I don't know. Some of them I just love, but I don't know what to do with them. And then this little pile over here is my sock yarn. So in stirring my stash, I came across some yarn that I really, really love that I had set aside before. This one is like, I think it's called Misty Morning, and it is a very fun yarn that I dyed a while ago with some lilacs, and then the one next to it is a colorway that reminded me of my grandma. This pink was kind of a one-of-a-kind. It's called Tanya Lynn, Where Are You? And I was really excited because I realized that I had set it aside with mohair, and this hat back here, if you can see it, this is the, let's see if I have a little more light on, that will help. This is the, I think it's called the Letty hat, L-E-T-I-E, and it is by, I think it's a free pattern by Isabel Kramer, and I love this hat. It is so warm and cozy, and it's mohair held double with fingering, and you use about 60 grams of the fingering skein. So that's about, I don't know, like 230 yards, and then you use the mohair with it. And I think I really want some more of these hats. So I pulled out these two sets, and that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make some more hats for myself. All right, I have finished with my yarn sorting out, and I've moved on to my stitch markers, my knitting needles, my accessories, all those things that go with when you're crafting. Right now I have this big huge bin that fits in one of my cubbies that I had previously had organized, but now it's sort of a big mess. I have this cute rope bowl that I got at our local farmers market that I would put in some odds and ends. I have some yarn cozies in here. It's kind of hard to see. That's what I have in there, and I have some tags, some miscellaneous things. So I'm going to sort through this and see what I really need, and maybe some things I don't need anymore. I do like to use a lot of stitch markers as well as progress keepers. So for Christmas, I got some of these cute little, they're actually jewelry organizers. Let me see if I can bring it in close so you can see. I will link it below. I actually got the idea from Eric from Sticks and Twine, and it's actually a jewelry organizer, but it opens and it's perfect for knitting accessories. So like this one, I think maybe I'll show you better later because if I tip it, but you can see I have I've sorted them into different styles of stitch markers and things. So anyway, I'm going to go through these. I'm going to start sorting and see what I really need and maybe where things need to go. I do have quite a few things like tape measures, things, oh, I've got knitting needles coming out of my shirt, and things like tapestry needles. And I don't mind, I actually like having multiples because then if I have different projects, I am not a one project at a time knitter, so I like to have more projects going at once, and it's nice to have like a scissors and a tape measure, those sorts of things in each of my project bags. So I'm going to get to work and then I'll show you where I end up when I'm all done sorting. Okay, I've got my needles sorted up a bit, and I just wanted to kind of show you how I do the needles. I used to have this old, just kind of a binder like this with these loose leaf pages that I would just put in my needles, and I just had it labeled on the top. But I had finally outgrown that, and it just started to annoy me because they would fall out the top where the opening is. So now I have a couple different options. So most all of my fixed circular, I'm more of a fixed circular person, are in this ChiaoGoo needle case. I do carry these in my shop. They have a little zipper on the front, so you can put little accessories in if you want to. And then inside, you'll see it goes from US 1 to 7 on one side and 8 to 15. Now I don't really have anything bigger than an 8 as far as circular needles. So what I do is I put my smaller circular needles here, so like my 12, my 16 inch, maybe my 24 inch. I put those on this side according to the needle sizes. And then over here, starting with 2s, I will put, so whichever one it is across. So like this is the 2. These are my short cable lengths, and then right across from it is the 2s that have the long cable lengths. And then I do that going up. Now maybe I should put in, a different label, but I haven't yet. Someday maybe I hope to make myself one that's a little more appropriate to how I knit, but that is what I have right now. So that's most of my circular needles. And then I am a double pointed, I take that back. This has some circular needles in. I do have a fixed set from Knit Picks I got when I first started with the cords, and then I think it goes from like 4 or 5 to 10 and a half, 11. So this case, I think I just got on Amazon. I don't remember. I got it a long time ago, but it was just like a knitting needle case. And it works pretty good, but again, it's not perfect for what I needed, but it has some pouches here. So over here I have my cables, and I have a couple odd sizes some of the smaller circular needles that don't fit into this bigger ChiaoGoo one. And then I have a couple really random big needles that I use if I'm like knitting a super bulky line brand kind of yarn. And then I have this section over here, which I think is meant for straight needles, but I have a couple needles. These are some double points. I have a different double point case. This ChiaoGoo case is how I store my double points, but it only goes from 0 to 3. I actually only have 0 to 2.5 that I really use a lot. This is actually a size 5 I put in here because they were shorter and they would have fallen way down low into these pockets here. But so I think these are 4s and 6s, and my 5s are in the other one, and then this is a big one. I mostly use the small double points because I use them for sock knitting, but I also do use them for knitting sleeves or knitting mittens and things like that. And then I do have this set from Knit Picks. You can see the zeros are missing because that's what I knit my socks in. But I do like those a lot, so I just keep those in their case. Yeah, so that is how I store my needles right now, and I'm actually going to just be putting them in this basket. I'm going to kind of stack them in there and go from there. Oh, and then before I turn this off, I wanted to show you the little stitch marker organizers. So here's one. I did 2 different ones. They have some basic needles on top. I just sort of sorted them kind of by similar things, and then I have some miscellaneous things on the bottom. This one has more stitch markers. I have kind of the more decorative ones on the top, the more like silver charmy ones, and then some progress keepers, and then little accessories on the bottom. Hello again, makers. It's me, Tanya, back to wrap up this organizational vlog. I hope that you enjoyed seeing the process and the steps that I took to kind of organize my stash, get rid of some of it. I did end up having about, I would say maybe 20 to 30 skeins that I pulled that were no longer bringing me joy, that I wanted to pass on to other knitters who might enjoy them. So those just aren't speaking to me anymore. So I did destash some things, but by and far, I organized in a way that will be so much more efficient for me and the way that I'm making. And I pulled out those 8 different sweater quantities that I was telling you about, and I put them in my eyesight here so that I will see them and hopefully be reminded of how much I love them. And when I go to start a new project, I will have those ready for me. I also pulled out my favorite sock yarns. I added a few more to this middle area here that I was telling you about. Let me turn you so you can see. So I do have a few, there's some full skeins. I have a sock blank in here. Also have some self-striping that'll be great that I got from a friend that I will make some shorty socks out of that I'm excited to do. And then my most favorite and exciting discovery. So when I might have talked about this a little bit, but yesterday I spent so much time winding scraps into balls. So what I did is I sorted them. I have 3 projects going. So let me see if I can explain this to you. I have this Hexagon Blanket, and I love all my scrappy projects. This is a Hexagon Blanket I started many years ago. So you can see here, it's little hexagons. I think it's called the Barrel Blanket, and I will try to link it below for you. I think it's still on Ravelry. But it's super cute, and I love it. But it is made with double points, and it can get kind of fiddly, so I think that's why I slowed on it. But I do like it, and so what I did is I have a jelly roll blanket. So I have a jelly roll blanket as well. What I decided to do, because scrap projects sometimes can be so, willy-nilly, and they kind of, if they're all the colors, sometimes it's too overwhelming. So what I did is I pulled out most of my brighter mini skeins, my brighter scraps, my darker scraps, and I put them in here. So this is an old, sorry for the noise, this is an old, like from sheets. But you can kind of see there's lots of, I used to be in the row 1, sorry for the crinkling, I used to be in the row 1 yarn club, so you can see, there go the balls. So I pulled out anything that was like a brighter or a darker color to put in this. So that's what that one is. And then my jelly roll blanket, I specifically wanted it to be more feminine. So if you know anything about my family and myself, or if you're new to the channel, you will quickly find out that I'm a mom of 4 boys. So there's a lot of blue. I knit a lot of darker, more traditional masculine colors. Now, that's not to say that my boys do not like bright colors. They do. For instance, my 17-year-old wanted a hat out of this, and you can see how much that's blowing out. Okay, so I do knit those, but by and large, I knit more of the subdued colors. And I don't have a lot of pastels in my life, so I wanted to make a scrap blanket that was just the lighter colors. So this is my jelly roll blanket. I'm knitting it on, I think it's ones, I think it's US ones, and these are the carbons. They're carbon needles. And so I have these double point carbon needles that I'm using. They're a little long. I could really be on a shorter needle, but that's what I had. But so this is my jelly roll blanket, how it's coming along. And you will see it is a lighter pastel color. So this is inside my project bag. Here I have all of the lighter scraps. So anything that was in the same color tone of the pastels or the lighter scraps went into this one. So that was my first, if it fit for this one, I put it in here, that one I put it in there. Now sometimes when I make a pair of socks, sometimes I have, you know, depending, our feet size in our house are all pretty similar, but I usually have about 25 to 30 grams of fingering weight left. And you know, sometimes I have a plan for that, but usually I don't. So my plan now when I go ahead is, depending on the color, I'm going to wind off some to put in either of my blankets. And then I want to, so the other thing I started, backtrack a second, is after I put scraps in each of these, I had extra scraps or I had more scraps. Those I wound into balls to share with friends. So when my friends and I get together, we get, usually every June, we have the Zombie Knitpocalypse retreat in Rochester. I set those aside. They bring their scraps, I bring mine, and we all share our tiny balls, and we use them for our scrap projects, which is really fun. And it's actually how I got a lot of these lighter colors that I don't traditionally have. So I have those two projects, and then after I sorted out yarn for each of my main scrap blankets, and then also for my friends, there were still some left. Either they were just too tiny and I could have thrown them away, or they were just a lot of a particular skein and I knew that it was too much and that I would have more than my friends would want. So then what I did is I made two really big magic cake balls. So I'm telling you, I wound yarn a long time yesterday. Can you see how big these are compared to my head? They're pretty large balls. So I wound these, and what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to make, and these two are the lighter, I stayed with a lighter pastel, kind of not super vibrant color, because I feel like the colors will work together more in the blanket, even though it's scrappy. And I'm going to make another granny stripe blanket with this. I made one last year. I finished one for my 14-year-old son. And I think the pattern I used was by Lucy of Attic 24. And I use this clover C-hook when I crochet them, and I'll link my pattern, my project page below, and you can see how many I chained to start versus how big the blanket got. And I know that, I think I followed the pattern pretty closely that Lucy of Attic 24. However, I think when I make this one, I'm going to cast on more, because the blanket that I made, the width of it was really like only for one person, and I'd really like it to be a little bit wider so two people could sit under it when they are sitting on the couch or something. So anyway, all that to say, those were all my fingering scraps. So this was my biggest project yesterday evening when I wasn't filming, is I was winding a ton of yarn. But the other project that I unearthed while I was sorting and decluttering was my northeasterly blanket. Now, I knew it existed. I had changed it in Ravelry to say that I had frogged the project, but did I actually frog the project? Nah, not yet. I had left it in its little bag or in its little bucket waiting for me to do something with it, even though in my head I had broken up with it and moved on. However, one of the reasons I think I wasn't knitting on it was because I thought I didn't have an ample supply of DK and light worsted weight yarn, which is what I am knitting it in. I was so wrong. When I went through all of my yarn, I realized I have quite a bit. And that is what this bucket now holds. So you can see, whoa, we got balls flying everywhere. So this is the northeasterly blanket. And you knit it in strips like this. So I've got part of one strip. I think I probably will, maybe not, maybe this is probably wide enough. I would say it's about 5.5 feet wide right now. So it's probably wide enough. But you knit it in strips. Again, I'll link the pattern below. And it is in DK weight. Although I think you can knit it in fingering. I think she has directions for fingering. So what I did is, of course, I have all of my DK weight minis in here. Minis, not minis, scraps. But then I realized if I hold some of my fingering weight scraps double, because I have a lot of fingering weight scraps, more than I probably need, that will count as DK. So what I did was, for some of my, like for instance, Felice, let me put this big bucket down. If anyone has ever knit with Knit Picks Felice yarn, a pair of socks, they come in 2 50-gram balls. So they come in 2 50 grams. So if you're making a bigger pair of socks, you need 2 of them. Well, this is perfect. They're already divided for me. I can hold them double, and I will have that fun striping color in my northeasterly. So I have a couple of Felice that I added, and then I also have this big bag where I wound into balls 2 of the same color. So if I had a larger amount of a leftover skein, so say if I had 30 grams, I would do like 7 to 10 grams in one ball, 7 to 10 grams to match another ball, and then the other one I would put in my friend's scrap bag. So I have all of these to go in there as well. So I'm really excited about getting back to that and enjoying that project, because I did really like it. It was out of sight, out of mind. So I think that is the moral of this de-stashing organization story, is that if you are a crafter or a maker and the things that you love are not in your eyesight, at least if you're like me, it's so easy to forget about them. So it's good and important every once in a while to stir things up and move things around so that you remember all those things that you love. So I think that's it. I'm going to sign off right now for this vlog, and hopefully I'll see you again soon with some more updates on my current projects that I've completed and some whips and things for a regular Berry Fun Adventures episode. Until next time, take care everybody, be healthy, and have fun making. Bye-bye.